Hello, Hadley, whoever you are. We got Grandma Hadley here, and she's going to tell us a few things tonight about her life, so that in future years everybody will be able to know what Grandma looked like and what she sounds like, and a little bit about her life. And we're sure happy to have her here tonight. And we're going to start out, Grandma. Have you got a big smile for all your descendants? Grandma was 88 in January, and she sure doesn't look it. Grandma, where were you born?
I was born in Berlin, Michigan, 7 miles from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Do you know what year?
In 1893.
What were your father and mother's names?
Dad's name was John Russell.
And your mother's?
Martha Mariah Hersey.
Oh, that's two pretty same names. Do you remember about your father, what he looked like, or how old he was when you last knew him?
Oh, he was just about the coloring of art, and the same kind of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother was short, with very nice curly hair, kind of a light brown. A light brown.
Were they short or tall?
Mother was short, and Dad was a medium-sized man.
He must have been good-looking if he looked like Art.
Yes, I think so.
And Art was your oldest son, right?
Yes, Art was my oldest son.
Uh-huh. Do you remember what your dad did for a living?
He was a market gardener near Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mm-hmm. And they had 2 wagons on the road every other day delivering their vegetables.
Must have been a lot of work for them both.
Well, they had to work one day at home getting the vegetables ready, and the next day they had to take each a separate wagon and take it to town.
Mm-hmm. I remember you told me once one of the reasons why that marriage ended in divorce.
Drinking.
Uh-huh. And how many children were there in the family?
There was 6, 3 boys and 3 girls.
Uh-huh. What was the oldest boy?
His name was Samuel DeForest Russell.
And can you tell me the rest of them, from the oldest to the youngest?
John Munson Russell, and then myself, Odessa Russell. And next was my sister Elizabeth.
Lillian.
Elizabeth Russell. And the last one was, the next one was Proctor Russell, boy. And then the last one was a girl, Dorothy.
Well, did the family that Lillian was adopted into change her name?
Yes. Yes, they did. I don't know how many of them changed their name.
Well, Proctor.
Oh, Proctor did. Proctor, he's called George now.
Uh-huh. And I remember you telling me that after you came to Canada, that Uncle Sam got ill with the flu?
Yes. He came up to get me. I was 15 when I came to Canada with Grandma Kitson, the lady that adopted me. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, was when she adopted me, because she brought up 10 children of her own in the Christian religion, and she had 4 of us besides to come and help her. And then when we had an automobile accident, and when she was better after that accident, she wanted to come out to Manitoba where the rest of her children were living, and she brought me with her.
Tell me about that accident.
Well, she and I hitched up the horse and buggy and started out for the fair. And when we got about 2/3 of the way to the fair, we were meeting an automobile, and the automobile, the horse stopped dead still, scared stiff. And of course, the man in the car didn't know that the horse was scared, and he broke away from the buggy and threw us out, and broke away from the buggy and ran all the way to town. Somebody caught him, brought him home, but Grandma got a broken shoulder. So this man with the car said he would never drive another car if it ever caused an accident with a horse. But he said that horse stood stock still. I didn't know he was scared. So he come out to our place from Petoskey, Michigan, and he brought us nice little things for presents, and followed Grandma up until she was out of bed over her broken shoulder.
You told me that he gave you the first box of chocolates you ever had.
Yes, that's the first ones I ever had. I was about 14, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
then you came up to live in Canada with Grandma Kitson and her family, and you went to school, right?
she didn't bring her family with her. She just brought me with her. And the family came afterwards that was running a farm.
She said something about how you treated her one time. What was that?
She said I treated her better than any of her own children had ever done.
Well, that's kind of a nice compliment. Did you go to work?
I went to school the first year. They jumped a grade on me, and I was in grade 6. And they jumped to grade 8. And, of course, I didn't learn very much. And then I stopped and went to work for housework to some of Grandma's sisters.
Grandma Kitson's sisters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you attended church where?
I attended church the first night I arrived home with Grandma home. First night of my adoption, I went to church, and
And you were a churchgoer all your life, weren't you?
oh yes, she brought her family up churchgoers, and she always read the Bible every day, every morning out loud, and we all kneeled in prayer around it. And
What church was that?
well, I continue. Well, it was Church of Christ, the same as we went into when we went to Manitoba.
What? How did you meet Grandpa, or my dad?
I met him in Sunday school.
And what was he doing at the time?
And he was working in a grain elevator in Portage la Prairie.
And he was sort of orphaned as well, wasn't he?
Yes, his dad had come west in a boxcar with 3 of his children. He left the baby with his grandmother back in Ontario.
And his mother had died.
Yes, the mother had died.
So actually he was raised by his father.
Yes, he was raised by his father and his older sister and a brother. He was 8 years old when he came to the Manitoba.
And so when were you married?
Oh, now, when were we married? We were married in the 1st of July. When was our wedding day? It was 1st of July.
1914.
And 19 what?
14.
14.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you moved to the farm shortly after, right?
Yes, his dad coaxed him out to the farm to help him take off the crop. And he says, I'll give you a quarter section all equipped and build you a new house in the spring. But that just didn't all happen. But we went and lived in the house that was there. And from then on, he got one thing and another, like Dad wanted a new barn, and then he wanted a new greenery. Then he wanted a new, what was it he wanted next?
Car?
A new car.
Yeah.
And he kept telling me, oh, you'll get your new house all right. But I didn't get it until I'd been on the farm for 27 years.
I remember that old house. It was pretty comfortable.
I raised my family in that old house.
I remember we had the first closed-in car in the community.
We did that because Dad went to town with me one day. We were going to have a second-hand car, and he wouldn't. Well, we wouldn't pay the price they wanted for a second-hand car. So he and Jack, on a later day, he would come home, and he went to town on a later day. Tooted the horn outside. Oh, I was in the house, and he tooted the horn outside. And I said, there's a car I couldn't afford.
It was the new car you couldn't afford.
It wasn't a new car we couldn't afford. It was a second-hand one that I thought we couldn't afford.
Mm-hmm. Now, how much did this car cost?
$900.
Wow, I wish we could get a car for that right now. We bought a second-hand one the other day for $6,000. Did you like the farm?
Yes, I liked the farm very much. But we didn't get a new house until the last year we were on the farm. And we didn't have it quite finished when they offered us a job with the government on the Indian Reserve. From Dad was the boss.
The farm instructor.
Farm instructor, yes.
So I remember that house.
Taking down everything he could, pack them away to take them down to the reserve.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember he sort of unlearned to drive a car there.
Did he? I remember one day he asked for a job on a Saturday, and I said, would you like to dust these the doors in the house? They all need dusting. And when he come back, he presented me a bill of 17 doors.
Did he get paid?
No, I don't think so, unless it was his dinner.
Well, I remember growing up there in the community and left to go to work too. And you lived there, and then when I moved out to Vancouver, Dad came out there about a year or so later, and you lived there for how long?
5 years.
5 years, and then you packed up and went back to Portage.
Yes, because Dad was homesick.
Do you remember the day that we packed up Wes and in the little go-kart and went down to that little park to hear Bing Crosby sing?
Yes, I remember that, but you're missing something before that. I came out and stayed with you a whole month when Wes was first born.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, You stayed with me when Jim was born, too.
Did I?
Well, you were over there to help me.
I was there. I know when Jim was born, I had Wes take care of, and you'd left some pickles ready for the jars, and I had to put them in the jars. And every time a pickle would slip and not hit the jar, and on the floor instead, Wes, he was scrabbling for it and eating it as fast as he could.
He's a pickle puss now, too.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Now, you mentioned that there were things that you had been reading in the Bible that your church did not practice.
Well, evidently our church, my son and grandson tells me, is a breakaway from the Latter-day Saints. So I don't just remember what they were. Can you tell me?
Well, you said that you read where there were supposed to be prophets and apostles in the true church.
Yes, we didn't have them.
And you mentioned that they didn't have the elders come to heal the sick.
No.
And a few things like that. Well, did you find the answer in the Mormon church?
Oh, yes, I found that. But I didn't know it was there until I studied it. And had somebody else come and study with us.
Sort of teach you about it, eh? How old were you when you joined the church?
I was 15.
How old were you when you joined the Mormon church?
Oh, now you got me. 80? Oh, yes, I was 80.
That's right. Do you remember who baptized you?
Don Hillier.
Right. Who's he?
My grandson.
Right. How many children did you have?
Me, I had 3. Art, Louise, and Jack.
Do you know how many grandchildren you have?
No, I can't count them.
I'm kind of losing track myself. I think there'll be 17 this year.
Well, is that right?
So that means I have 17, so you'll have 17 great-grandchildren this year.
Well, I might have more than that if you count Jack's.
I'm counting Jack's.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, there'll be another one then. No, great-grandchildren I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Anyway, Grandma, I kind of got sidetracked back there ways. Now, we started out by asking, or didn't start out, but we asked the question, how did Uncle Sam die? I don't remember when he died, but I know he died in that bad flu.
Well, we children were all kept in touch with each other after we came from the home, you know, and so he knew where I was, and he started out. He was quite a young man then. He started out to find me, and he knew my address, so he came. He thrashed his way up through the states from Michigan, and when he got to Dakota, he got into some of Dakota's bad water, and he arrived in Manitoba with a case of typhoid fever, and he went out home with me after church to stay, and the man hired him for the field work. And then he went to Winnipeg, and when he went to Winnipeg, he come back the next day, and he says, "What are you keeping that guy around here for?" And to his wife, and she says, "He's sick." Well, he says, "Get him to town and find a good doctor for him." I said, well, if there's no room for him here, there's no room for me either. He says, you'll stay till your time's up, which was a month. And my brother went into the hospital with a bad case of typhoid fever, and he stayed in the hospital for that into the winter. And then Uncle John Kitson, my adopted mother's second son, he took him in and kept him all winter, and then got him a job in the spring. So my trip home to Michigan was all through there.
Mm-hmm. Well, he got married to Aunt Clara later on, and they had a baby, and the baby was about 2 years old, I think, in 1919 when that bad flu broke out.
Yes. And my brother died of the flu, and they buried them both in the same coffin.
Both of who?
Both of the flu.
The baby and him?
Yes.
Well, that was kind of sad, and a lot of people died with the flu in 1919.
I think that woman cried all summer.
Aunt Clara?
Yes, that was the summer we built our barn. And she came out to help me for a month with to help feed the men, and take care of all of the things. And she'd sit in she had the baby.
Oh, yeah, she had John after they died.
She was pretty near there, and she didn't get it. I done the baby.
Mom, you had two of us kids at home, didn't you?
Yes, the first two.
The first two?
The first two.
Uh-huh. And
I was too nervous to go to a doctor, so I got a lady I had been working for in Portage to go to the doctor for me, and she gave me my advice. But somehow or other I didn't keep him informed well enough, and I come to a bad end when we called him when it was time for Art to be born. He got stuck in the mud coming out, and so we had to get a couple of older ladies in to see to it. And I had a bad case of
toxemia. You had toxemia, I think you told me once.
Toxemia.
It's a poison in your system.
All right, we'll call it that. I never called it that. And then you came along. 55 minutes it took for you to arrive in the world all safe and sound. Nothing happened.
Who delivered me?
Mrs. Bunnage.
Mm-hmm. You knew her for a long number of years.
I sure did, but she had had midwives to herself, so she knew how to go about things. Mm-hmm. And
how come you didn't get to the hospital with me?
How could I get to the hospital in 55 minutes? We live 20 miles out or 15 miles out.
Well, that's right. The cars only went 30 miles an hour in those days.
And Mr. Bunnage was going to take me to the hospital, but he said, nothing doing, I wouldn't take her across the road.
So you threw your hat in the corner and stayed home?
I was getting ready to go all the time, and I couldn't find my hat of all things. And Mrs. Bunnage says, here, put on mine. And I got out in the kitchen, sat down in a chair, and I picked up that hat off my head and threw it just as hard as I could throw it in the corner.
Don't blame you.
Well, it was a nice thing to do. I wasn't thinking about that.
But Jack was born in the hospital.
Jack was born in the hospital. Very...
He was a bouncing baby boy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. He had the colic for 4 months. Otherwise, Jack never gave us any trouble. Mm-hmm. That was 3. That was it.
Uh-huh. Well, you've certainly had a long life.
Didn't seem long.
Didn't seem long.
Didn't seem long, only since Dad died.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
10 years?
Mm-hmm. You think you'd like to live to be 100?
No, I wouldn't like to be if it would be all right if he was here, but when I'm alone, why, it's no fun being alone and to be 100. You're no good anyhow when you're that age.
Well, I think it's pretty wonderful that you're living to be about 90.
Well, I'm getting crawling along that way, but not quite.
Mm-hmm. I want the boys to come and give you a hug, and so that you can give them one too.
A little boy, I used to come with Mom and Dad from Brandon, and we'd come. Remember when we got close to Grandma's because the Dairy Queen was on the corner, and sometimes I'd go out in the garden with Grandpa, and we'd start digging in the garden and find money. Why did you always have money in your garden?
Well, I didn't know it was there unless it was just radishes and things like this that you called money.
Well, one time I asked Grandpa, and he said that before the house was built there was a community center where they had something. You know what that was?
No, I can't.
Tennis court or something?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Because there was a big school built there afterwards.
Yeah. And then inside your house, you had all kinds of neat little knickknacks and stuff, but what was the name of the cat? Wasn't he Grandpa's favorite?
Oh, Grandpa's favorite. He had lots of them in the barn. He never come to the house without a cat around his neck. He'd take him by both legs, and 2 legs in each hand, and put the cat around his neck. Then he'd come to the gate post. He'd set the cat on the gate post. I don't know about him having any favorites. He might pick up any one cat, but we did have an Angora cat in the house, which wasn't much of a favorite of mine in due time.
I can always remember that cat, though. Yeah. And do you remember that? We'd always come and you'd have to give us a dime to go down to the Dairy Queen for an ice cream cone.
Oh, yes, sometimes, I suppose, but usually if a company come, I sent down for more than for a carton of ice cream. Just a handy buy. You always could put it on your pie or something rather like that.
And you always had such a nice garden, flower garden.
Oh, yes, I wished I had my album here. I could show you some pretty nice flowers. Keeping it and wondering who's going to get them.
Well, is there anything you'd like to say to my kids, which would be your great grandkids?
Well, they're pretty nice kids. I don't just know what I could say to them. They should always listen to Mom and Dad and go to church if when they're there, to follow their Mom and Dad to church continually. I didn't go to church when I was a little thing like them, but after I got with Grandma Kitson, I went to church all the time. I've never discontinued going to church till I got too old to get there.
Well, Grandma, I'd like to give you a kiss and tell you thanks for being my grandma, 'cause I love you.
Well, I love you too, Don. I think you're a great boy.
Okay.
Well, gee, the wind's picking up. Hello there. can you see me, Jimmy and Bobby and Donnie and Norma and Mom and Dad and whoever else is out there? We're here. It's nice to see you out there. And beside me, this lady that's sitting beside me? Oh, I thought you'd ask. Oh, this is my grandmother. Yeah. Say hi, grandmother, to the
Hi.
people out there.
Hi, Wes.
No, to the people out there.
Oh, hi, Wes.
Okay. Hi.
That's all we can make of it.
I guess, I don't know. Whenever I get in front of a camera, I got to put on a show.
Oh. When I get in front of a camera, I usually put on a show.
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't know what kind of a show, but
I don't like reality that much. I'd rather live in the fantasy world myself.
yes. Uh-huh.
What do you think of fantasy?
I think more of
Imagination.
I think more of reality.
Do you?
Sure.
It's not as much fun.
No?
How come little girls got so much imagination?
Well, who's that?
Any little kid.
Oh,
Kids.
oh yes. As long as we build on it in the right way, build
make it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Build it up for them.
You know.
Hmm.
Because
Ask him to sing a song for you, Mom.
Oh yes. Can you sing a song for me?
sure.
It doesn't need to be a long one, you know.
Rambling Rose, Rambling Rose, why I love you, heaven knows. Way out there with a love true, who can cling to a rambling road, rambling rose, rambling rose, why I love you, heaven knows. Wild and carefree as the wind blows, rambling rose. I knew you liked that one. Oh, are we on? Kind of music did you have back when you were a girl, Grandma?
I can't remember when I was a girl with my own family, but it's always been church music ever since. Well, there was other kinds, other things that we sang, but my favorite was church music.
Is Grant Lamb still living?
I don't know. I haven't heard that he certainly wasn't looking very well when I seen him this summer.
Oh.
Oh, but he went way to the coast to head a musical out there in Oregon. But I guess he got home after that. I haven't heard. I've always been going to write and ask, but I haven't got it.
What's your secret for long life?
You got me there. I couldn't tell you. I always did what I had to do and no more.
You're lucky, eh?
Yes, I'm just one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
We sure love you, Grandma. And I want to thank you for all the years that you've been so good and kind and thoughtful towards us, and especially to thank you for the lovely daughter, your lovely daughter that has been my wife for all these years, and the happiness that we've had together. And I think that part of that is the way that you raised her, and I'm so grateful to you for
I
her.
didn't have to raise Louise. She just grew up.
That's right.
So she just grew up. I
Well-
can't remember having to raise her.
Well,
She's always just the way she is right
Yeah.
now.
but I think that that's because of the way that you lived.
Well, maybe.
We have to have some example, all of us, throughout our lives, someone to look to for guidance, and whether you sat her down on your knee and said, this is what you should do or this is what you shouldn't do, just living the way that you did made her such a wonderful person that she is. Don't you think that's right?
I don't know. I couldn't say that.
Yeah, Mom and Dad. Mom and
Oh,
Dad.
yes, she had a good dad.
Oh, you bet.
She had a wonderful dad.
hmm
Sorry I lost him so soon.
hmm Well, Grandpa was a really good man. hmm
I met him in church, and one thing I said to him, we just went together 11 months, and I said, I won't marry you I won't marry you if you drink.
hmm
I said, that's settled. I said, I won't marry you.
And what did he say to that?
He didn't say anything because he didn't drink.
Yeah. Did he ever drink after that?
Oh, odd bits, but never really.
hmm
You know, maybe he'd meet an old friend who'd like to drink something, and they'd go in and have a little talk, but there's nothing to it.
hmm
I didn't climb all over him because he just took one little drink.
hmm I wish I could think of something to ask you.
Well, just...
Do you remember the time that you had the sale when you were selling out on the farm to go down onto the reserve?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how I brought the cups from the school?
No, I don't remember that.
We had to get cups for. Well, you put I think sandwiches and things like that for the people that came to the sale, and we had to have cups for the drinks, and they had a bunch of cups down at the school, and Jack and I think it was just Jack and I went down to get them, and I was driving your car. I think it was a 38 Ford. And we had the cups, I think, in the trunk and in the back of the car in wash tubs. And we come around the corner I was almost missed the corner to turn into the driveway. Do you remember that? Boy, we went around that corner, I don't know how fast, and we went over a hump and down into the road, and we never broke a cup.
Into the ditch.
Yeah.
You said into the road.
Well, we did over the ditch, and we had to come down into the roadway. There was a drop down into the roadway, and
You're hitting the high spots, eh?
wasn't I ever?
I always remember you're always ready to help do anything around the farm when you come out.
Yeah, I remember pitching sheaves one time and throwing them right over the top of the wagon. Do you remember that?
No,
Yeah.
but I think you drove a load of grain from the reserve up to the elevator,
But-
and you were going to turn around. Well, you were
Right.
going to turn the horses right
Yeah,
around like
was-
that. You thought they were
was,
going to turn around
with,
like that.
Eddie Toon and Eddie Crucian, and it was a team of horses and a wagon full of grain.
Oh,
Yeah, and I'd never driven them horses before, and when we got there I had to turn around, and I pulled them around so sharp that it would have tipped the wagon over, only Eddie grabbed the reins and stopped me.
I remember that.
Yeah. Another time when we were thrashing, I backed the John Deere tractor up into the thrashing machine, and it caught in reverse, and I backed right into it, and it squashed me between the.
But you lost your life.
Yeah,
Boy.
that's the only time I ever saw Dad mad.
Well,
He jumped off of there, and he was pretty mad.
Well, but
I
he
can't
was
even remember.
mad because you were so near hurt.
Yeah, that's right. Remember that picture and when it was taken?
Yes, I think I do.
When was that taken? Do you
That
remember?
was taken in Vancouver when we lived in Vancouver.
Oh.
We had it taken at the Hudson Bay.
Hmm. Was it for your anniversary?
No, but Louise was getting a and there 2 cells. There was 40 in it. So we'd go along and have our picture taken. We'd have our picture taken, and you went along and have your picture taken.
Yeah.
I don't know which way it was.
Do you remember being sealed to Dad in the temple? That was a thrilling night, wasn't it? In the temple when you and Dad were sealed together. I think Jim acted as Dad on that occasion.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Hmm.
I remember that.
Now we're sealed for time and all eternity. And
That's
Art's
right.
been sealed to you.
Yes.
Who acted as Art? Was that you? Who acted as Art for that when you were sealed together? Yeah, I thought it was Don that was acted as Art, and Mum, and so you've all been sealed as a family.
Oh,
That-
yeah.
That's really nice. But I guess it's getting late and you're getting tired, eh, Grandma?
Yeah,
What?
don't look much like I did there.
Not now.
I didn't have any hairdresser there.
Mhm.
Had to be my own.
Mhm.
You did your own hair for that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Don, is it on? Well, Grandma, I think this has been a pretty grueling effort on your part, and we appreciate it. And we're a little bit selfish keeping you so late, so we'll let you say good night to everybody now.
I feel much better than I did when I started, so good night.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.